There we are, right? Hey, I'm gonna tell you what, Blaine. This is Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine. And I tell you what, today we're gonna be talking about customers, right? We love them, we need them, but sometimes we just don't like them.
Yeah, it can be tricky some days, some weeks, you know.
That's right. So we're gonna be talking about, hey, although the market talks to you, customers aren't always right. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But man, I've got to hear about your beer today. Let me hear it.
All right, today I've got, and this is one I've had quite often, but I saw it in the fridge and I just had to grab it. It's Pizza Port from Carlsbad, California, Swami's India Pale Ale. And here they got a guy sitting on the bluff overlooking the beach in California. Just looks like a really nice spot to be. And it's a really terrific beer. And I'm always wondering, like, established in 1987. So these guys were one of the first, like, craft beer, like, I'm guessing, I'm kind of making this up because I don't really, but I'm assuming one of the first craft beer companies. And I'm guessing it was out of a pizza company. So someday I want to go to Pizza Port and have a pizza and a beer. What do you
All
got?
right. I tell you what, I found yet again another San Antonio craft brewery. Right, it's
Nice.
like I am running across. I always think I'm going to run out of Texas breweries, but I didn't. But I went with Weathered Souls. Okay, and it's a
Okay.
West Coast style IPA. What I mean, that looks all California right there, doesn't it?
Oh, that the Woody with the surfboard. It is kind of funny because the beach with the surfboard, like, we got this magic going on here that we seem to somehow pick a similar beer somehow every week.
And we absolutely never talk about it ahead of time, and somehow we're always kind of right on task. So I'm going to try that out. And I tell you what, if you're a first time listener and you're checking out Mike and Blaine, and Nobody Told Me, our show, you can go to our website, mikeandblaine.com. We got merch. You can buy us a beer if you want something previewed on the show. If you want just to communicate with us, you got a topic you want to do. But also, we're live on Wisdom every Thursday, 4 o'clock Central, live on Wisdom like we are right now. So if you want to talk about customers, or you want to talk about beer, or you want to talk about something else, it doesn't matter, jump on. We always love to invite a guest on. So if you're out there listening on Wisdom, hey, give us a shout, get on in. So Blaine, let's talk about customers, because
Sure.
the way I look at it is, when you start your business, right? When we first start, I always think that that's the person we have to think about first, right? Whether it's a service, whether it's a product, whether it's software like you and I have built, you have to think about your customer and what you're doing for them first. Am I right?
Yes, but you can add a big but in there. When when things go wrong, when people say the customer is always right, I think the biggest thing you have to decide is it your customer or is it a customer? Because if a customer comes in and you're kind of looking at them going, what they're asking for, that's not what we do. That's not, and you're battling to come up with a fit for them. They're a potential customer, but they probably aren't your customer, because I don't think your best customers, your best customers probably are right, at least most of the time. I just was thinking that maybe I'm totally wrong. That I came up with that on the fly. So what are you thinking?
Well, okay. So I always think about it like this way. I mean, because 14 companies, right? I built 14 companies, and I always start with the problem first. But in order to think of the problem, I got to think about who has the problem. So so what I'm doing is kind of walking you backwards. So when I think about who has the problem, I have to create a persona. Like, it's a person, and generally I give them a name. It might be Blaine. Well, Blaine's the software CEO from Edmonton, Canada. That might be a persona. But then I start asking myself, well, who is Blaine? What is he like? What's his education? Where does he live? What does his house look like? Whatever, what does he listen to? What shows does he watch? I try to create who you are, because
Yeah.
if I can get in your headspace, I can start to think about how you would address problems. Do you got something else that you do?
Well, I think like we are every single day, every single minute, we're trying to understand our customers' problems, because it's our job to give a solution. It's not our job to necessarily just, what do you want? They tell us and we do it, because they're not there to innovate. They're not really there to solve the problem. That's our job. So we have to thoroughly understand the problem. But I know at times, I guess, it's sort of following on my train of thought before, we've been solving the problem for the wrong customer. We didn't quite understand. Like we kind of identified what we thought were the customer, and then we had these struggles. And you're listening to them, and if you're kind of going, well, they're always right, you can kind of get dragged down the wrong path. And then what happened was you started to get pulled into an up market, actually, where bigger companies started pulling us up, going, oh, we kind of need you up here. And so then we started to listen, go, there's a point where it's like, well, they're right. That's where we have to go. But it was a little bit different from where we started. So I think it's a bit of a loaded question, because there's times where it's like, you've got to listen to your customer, you got to understand their problems, you have to learn from them, but make sure that you know what you're about and where you're going, and you're not getting pulled off track, because not everybody is your sort of perfect customer, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So here recently, right, working with Truly Financial and trying to build partnerships with accountants, I came up with two personas, right? And I'm like, okay, what does an accountant really want from a bank? So I came up with two personas that I could, and this is 15 years of working with accountants. So the first one I named Brent, and the second one I named Stacy, right? And the reason why is that way I kind of, when I'm talking in our meetings, I'm like, oh, well, Brent kind of likes this and Stacy likes that, right? And it helps people understand the messaging that we're trying to get across.
Yeah.
But we'll say Brent is highly educated, maybe a CPA, does a lot of reading, probably, has more conservative leanings, from a political standpoint. Goes to more higher end type functions from a convention or education standpoint, like AICPA Engage, or, those type of things. And really wants, he wants his team, right? Because usually they have a team at that point in time. He wants his team to be empowered to manage software. Right. And then you have Stacy. Stacy might be, an individual bookkeeper, right? She's got a firm. She kind of runs either as a solopreneur or something like that. Probably less financially sophisticated, but really does a good job of bookkeeping, likes the social aspect of conferences more than the education aspect. So really what I'm trying to do, it doesn't matter if it's Stacy or Brent, I'm trying to define two different types of people that are in that world. Right. And by doing that, I can start saying, okay, well, do they really have the same problems? Does somebody with maybe 300 businesses, as a CPA, have the same problems as 30 businesses in a bookkeeping, service? So that's kind of where I start to try to develop that question, because I don't know that I think the problem might be different, right? Even though our product's the same, you have to say, what does our product solve for Brent? What does our product solve for Stacy? And then the messaging becomes different.
Yeah, we've always followed a bit of that persona principle. I think there's a book called Persona Principle, actually, in the same way. And there's times where we've like written out it's just a little paragraph, but it's the same thing that we follow. We've talked about personas, but as the years went on, internally, a lot of times we'll talk about customers that we're familiar with that are very different. And it's kind of like they represent a persona in a way. So we refer to a customer just by first name, and so everyone's like, yeah, oh yeah, I totally get that. I see where you're going, right? That can be really powerful, rather than, because you don't want to get stuck in sort of feature land, right? We're selling to people, we're solving their problems. And it's not just usually one. So like we usually have kind of three personas, and it helps you to empathize with them and understand those problems. So I think it's a great place to start. I think every business should be doing that, and giving a personality to your persona, so that it feels like a real person.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, at Finograph, we missed big time here, right? We missed on this because at first we were going after bankers, and who we talked to was the loan officers, the relationship managers, by actually talking to small business owners, because we thought our product was best served for the small business owner and the relationship manager, loan officer to have a conversation, right? Quickly analyze financials. Here's your strong points. Here's your weak points. Here's what you need to do to improve to get a loan. That's not who buys the product. That's who really needs to use it. Yeah. But there wasn't a problem. We weren't really solving a problem for the bank executives, right? Because they care. Like, our people should do that anyway. They should be able to look at financials and be able to do this anyway. Yeah. That's just part of their job. So we missed big time, from that perspective. And because of that, it really, slowed down our growth and the ability for people to adopt the product. It really hurt us by not understanding this. But here's what happened. As soon as other companies, because we couldn't get into the banks first, we went to PayPal and some other folks like that. It reversed itself. That's what I'm saying. The customer isn't always right, even though the bank executives say, "No, we're banks. We've been around since since money was invented. This is the way a bank runs." They missed it. They weren't right because they should have listened to the field where the actual problem was, right? Because now they could talk to 200 businesses in a month and not 50, right? I mean, it really sped up the whole process in that case. And I'll tell you, here's the reason why that was important. In 2008, when the bankers burnt the world down, right? Yeah. Everything went to pot. And the banks left the small business lending space. They just absolutely left it. And that's where you saw the rise of the alternative lender, like the OnDecks, the Cabbage, and all these folks pop up, because they were filling the void for small businesses that the banks have vacated. Well, the reason why they vacated is Dodd-Frank came in and applied a lot of regulation to every loan. It like peanut buttered it across, which made a $5 million loan just as expensive to prepare and put together as a $50,000 loan, which means it cost me the same amount of money to do both. Why mess with the small ones when I make more money on the big ones? Yeah. That's what happened in the market. Well, how do you fix it? Just what we were talking about. You give them a faster way to analyze information, is what we were doing at Finograph. And then all of a sudden it reversed. But now the message was there, right, for the executives. We're speeding up the process so you can get more loans with the small business and increase your profit margin from that lending. So, and the interesting part there is that it's such a focus on the true problem, because it's easy to get off track on what problem are you solving. You're solving like these businesses that have cash flow issues and they're struggling for this, that, and the other. But the true problem you're solving for that group of bankers, you're making them more money. Like there's always where the buck stops, right? And that's the problem you're really solving. And once you kind of know exactly what that problem is and how you're solving it, where they're going to make money and it becomes really compelling, then it's not about, frankly, unfortunately, it's not about the success of those businesses. It's about lining their own pockets, really. Yeah, right on. So, hey, anybody out there that's got a customer that they knew wasn't right, I'd love to hear that story. So if you're out there listening right now on Wisdom, call us and you knew this customer wasn't right, because I've got a story for you, Blaine. I really do. But you raised your hand, so you probably got a story too. I guess we both have stories. I probably mentioned this story before on this show, but one of our very first customers, I would say our very first substantial customer in my old agency days, we had to fire. And that was a customer that was not right. It wasn't right for us. It was just, and I've alluded to it before, that we signed a contract that we shouldn't have. And the customer just came with it's not even scope creep. They just wanted to change completely the project we were working on from A to Z, just completely flip it. And that was just an awful thing to do. And there's no way it was going to work. They could have put us out of business as a young company. And we ended up having to fire that client. It was one of the first clients we had. It was one of the first substantial ones. And we had to take a hit and we had to fire. And that was a time where it was pretty extreme, but we had to walk away completely from that client. But boy, there were a lot of lessons learned in that one. And client definitely wasn't right in that case, and definitely wasn't right for us. All right. So around 2000, right? Around 2000, I had a janitorial contract. It was one of my first big contracts, right? It was an automotive manufacturer, and they made the rear ends for the Dodge Viper. So it was kind of a cool manufacturing plant to be around, right?
Yeah.
And the problem that I had was not with the client, the person actually made the buying decision and those type of things. It was with someone in the management chain who had a personality conflict with my project manager for the plant. Right. So we're fighting. And so his way of dealing with it was actually to create small quality issues over and over because he had a better relationship with the previous vendor. So by making us look bad, he might be able to get the other vendor back, right? That he got more perks or whatever the relationship was. Well, so I didn't really, I kind of got it. I thought it was just kind of a little nitpicky here and there. Really didn't understand, the thing that he was talking about. I just thought it was a personality conflict because I had like 14, 15 other clients at the time. And this one just seemed like a little annoyance, not a big problem. Well, they called me in to a meeting and they had my client and 3 other managers. And, one of them was the guy that was causing the issues. And they went down a whole laundry list of things. Missed this waste paper basket. There was a spider in this window. There was, paper towels weren't filled up for second shift. I mean, it was, this type of stuff. I'm like, okay, well, we can fix that. That's easy. And the guy says, well, I keep complaining about it and you're not doing anything. I said, well, this is kind of the first time I've heard about it. Right. And this is the customer talking to me, the mean guy.
Yeah.
And he said he just keeps on. I mean, I'm apologizing. I'm doing all the things that you should do, to keep a contract and be customer service oriented. And he just keeps going. I'm like, well, listen, you're bringing up all this stuff. I mean, you talk to this person, you talk to that person. When were you going to talk to me? Right. That's what I said. Now that's a little harsh. Like you're talking to everybody else in the world, but I'm the guy that could solve it. When were you going to tell me? And he jumps up from the table and goes, you shut your mouth and yelled at me in front of everybody. And I said, hey, I'm okay. And yeah, remember, I just come from a state trooper. I was a state trooper a year before and I didn't like anybody yelling at me, but right. I'd done that for 7 years. So I'm not intimidated to be yelled at, but I don't like to be yelled at. Right. So he yells at me in front of everybody. And I said, hey, listen, I get it. I mean, you're frustrated with this. So am I, because you haven't paid your bill in 90 days. And my client goes, what? He says, we brought you in here for this meeting and we're behind in our bills. I'm like, yeah. I said, I was just kind of carrying it. I send it up to your accounting department every once in a while. But yeah, you're 90 days behind and you owe me like $140,000. Ended the meeting. Apologies were given, but that's another example of how the customer isn't always right. Yeah. There was a personal agenda there and not the big issue. They missed the complete big issue of the whole situation.
The customer, yeah, that's, I get another sort of example here, I guess, and the customer isn't always right. It's a very like a different viewpoint. They don't know they're not right. It's up to us to know. And example, we with dry run, we actually were working on some stuff, and we got off on sort of a red herring, right? We got a couple of customers were asking us, kind of for a new feature, add this. And we started to get dragged down that wrong direction, and it just didn't quite add up. But we kind of took it at face value. And then I don't know what it was. I don't remember what it was, but one day we kind of went, wait a minute. They're asking for A because they don't understand B. It's not a feature problem. It's actually a training problem. It's a messaging problem, because it's like they're going to the safety line. They're going to the place they're familiar, and we're taking into them a little bit of an unfamiliar realm. And if we do this kind of tweak over here, it'll solve the problem that they're picturing way over here. And it was kind of a weird realization. And it was a good reminder for our team to say, you listen to the client, but what we need to understand is the underlying problem, because what they're asking for wasn't right. Mm-hmm. We weren't asking the right questions to get to the bottom of it and go, oh, now we understand the problem. the solution's actually way over here. And once we understood the problem and we could deliver the solution, it's amazing how smooth it sailed. And it wasn't like building a bunch of features and stuff that were completely down the wrong path. So the customer was right in a way that they had a very like a problem that they were facing. But what they were telling us really in the end, it wasn't right, but it wasn't their fault. It was up to us to recognize that. And so that we take that on our shoulders, that it's a good learning experience, a good reminder, understand the problem, because it's up to us to come up with the answer for it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a good point. And I'll tell you, I mean, that's where I think that I spent a lot of time training area managers, project managers, people that were closest to the customer, was being able to ask the right question, right? To be able to identify that.
Yeah.
You know, and that I mean, of course, why is what you always say, you know, why did that happen? And why is that important? And why are we, you know, what,
Yeah.
why are we looking at this as something we have to do next? Right. So I'm trying to remember, there was a technique, a question that I gave my managers, and probably by the end of the episode, I'll remember. There's a technique that I gave them of, hey, here's how you deal with, you know, trying to find the root issue. But the first thing you have to do is get past the emotion.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, and one of the things I used to teach them is what I call verbal judo. And verbal judo is, and I didn't make that up. This is something they taught us as a state trooper, but it's how to diffuse things, but still get people to go the way you want them to go. Right. So it's like a defensive tactic with words. And what it is I appreciate that, but, you know, I understand that, but right. Yeah. I mean, two key sentences, and they made us practice it over and over and over again, because you use it, I'm going to say 20 times a day as a state trooper.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, I understand what you're saying, but here we're coming from, but you're still going to jail. You know, those type of things. It's a way to, you know, get people to understand that I'm letting you air it out. I'm not arguing with you, you know, but we still have to do these things. Right?
Yeah.
We still have to do these things. You know, I ran restaurants also for almost 6 years. I had 3 of them in the St. Louis area. And if there's ever a place where the customer isn't always right, it's in a restaurant. I mean, people will complain about absolutely anything. Right. Yep. Just absolutely. I mean, from temperature to the temperature of the room, to the sun coming in the window, to, you know, flying my soup. I mean, you know, you name it, people will complain about it. And your job all day long is to accommodate, but also educate.
Yeah.
Right. Accommodate and educate. So my favorite one is, have you ever been to and you don't see it as much anymore, and I'll probably explain why I stopped it. You remember when they used to have like happy hours where they say free wings during happy hours, and they have like a buffet and they have wings, or they have appetizers out on the table, and, you know, you come in for happy hour and then you can eat those. Yeah. Well, that was fine. We'll say wings at the time cost me 25 cents, you know, and we just throw out a whole bunch of them, let people eat. 25 cents each or so, 23, 24, 25 cents each.
Holy smokes. I'm actually shocked at that, because how many wing nights have I gone to where it's like 25-cent wings? So you don't make cost.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't make any money on it. Matter of fact, I mean, you're more likely to lose money. That's why a lot of places will go with we'll say a 2-drink minimum, right? I'll say we're just break even, but nobody likes to go into a dead bar, right? A dead restaurant. So, you know, it's like my dad always used to tell me, he says, hey, never eat where there's no other cars.
It's a good policy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but here's the I had one guy come in 2 or 3 days in a row, or weeks in a row, I guess, because I only did it like once a week. And he would just eat wings and drink a glass of water and go on about his business. Well, we had to educate him. That's why I instituted the two drink minimum. And that's what he argued. He goes, well, these are free for everybody. I'm like, going, well, no. they're designed to get you to utilize our bar and buy our services. You know, they're just not free for everybody. We do have a minimum. We argued about it and the education behind it. I'm like going,
Yeah.
this isn't, a soup kitchen.
Exactly.
This is actually a business. So, but those are hard things, especially when it comes to food. I mean, the guy's obviously hungry. I mean, we let him continue to do it, but I mean, it's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
In those
And
cases.
I will and I'm not speaking for everybody. It's just for me, but I remember those days, and like, I haven't seen one of those in decades. But I do remember where it would be the free food with a drink, and you'd see the buffet sitting there, and I'd be kind of creeped out because I'm like, why are they giving it away for free? Like, you kind of had that sense that, were those last night wings, right? Like, I just have that feeling, right? And but now I feel a little guilty for, like, I remember one time, and this is a long time ago. This is 15, 20 years ago, but I do remember walking into a bar one night with a couple buddies, and we sit down, it was wing night, and we'd be like, we'll have 100. And that's, we'll have 100. And I don't know, we just had like we just kind of, it was Monday Night Football or whatever, and it was a big mound. Like, boys, we're getting through this. And I don't think I ate wings for probably 6 months after that. But now, knowing that, like, you think the guys would make money off of that, I didn't realize you guys were actually probably at cost. So
you do make money on it, but you make money on it at the bar. People drink it, and then they'll eat some wings and go, oh man, let's just get a sandwich, or let's get, and people tend to buy more for that, but they'll come in initially for the wings.
Yeah.
But you got to control your cost on that. If you came in and said, I need 100, I would have said, well, here's what 100 costs, right? If I only put out X number of bags, right? You get so many bags per week. So that's what I'm willing to give away, and maybe it's,
no,
right.
I had no idea. But we, like, to get through 100 wings, we went through a lot of beer though too, which I'm guessing had a good markup. But, as a probably 22-year-old or 23-year-old, whatever we were at that time, of course, you're not thinking about that. You're just like, it's Monday Night Football. We're going to be here for a few hours and let's set a record. That was what was in our mind, right? As the youthful moron, right? Like, let's set a record. We haven't done 100 yet,
Yeah, well, that's true. What's funny, when you said good markup on beer, usually that has a lower markup than, we'll say, the liquor, right? Yeah, okay. the liquor, right? It's because bottle of beer might cost, I think at that point in time, 90 some cents. We're selling it for $2-3, something like that. I mean, it's still good, but it's not like there's 21 shots in a liter of liquor, right?
Yeah.
So I get 21 drinks out of every bottle. So if a bottle costs $18, I'm making $60-$70, per bottle, depending on what I want.
From I will tell you, from my perception, you probably got about $15, because there's a term that all Canadians, well, not all, a lot of Canadians know, called free pour America, because you get down here, and in Canada, they're just like, beep, beep, like it's to the milliliter, nothing more, like it's measured. And then you come down here and it's like, here's an ounce, and then the liquor, they pour very freely down here. And that's what we Canadians call it, free pour America, because they're not as, tidy as Canadians. This is all you get, 1 ounce, not a drop more, right?
Well, that's because there's only so much liquor to share with all Canadians.
You got some Crown, and that's all you got.
They ration it up there or something.
Yeah. Well, they're pretty free pour with the beer, I guess, but not so much with the liquor.
All right. So, but here's why I think, and I want to talk about customers with this. If you ever go to an airport and they say, hey, a beer's what, $10, we'll say $10, and they say, you can add a shot for $3. So why do you do that? Right. And a lot of people take up on that offer. Yeah. Well, there is a lot of markup in the beer, but the liquor doesn't move as fast in the airport, right? So they can rotate your inventory and move it and still increase the average check value of every customer, right? Yeah. So I get $10 from me, I got 13, right? So I mean, I contribute and make money on every single one of those. If you ever want to talk about a place where customers are wrong, it's in an airport. Like, I mean, all you got to do is watch TV every day. There's always somebody mad about a mask, mad about a drink, and people get absolutely nutty in an airport.
Yeah,
absolutely crazy, and they're always wrong. right? You have to wear your mask. Yeah, I know you don't have to wear your mask, at Dollar General now in San Antonio, but you do on the airplane.
And I have so much trouble like understanding that, because I get into an airport and it just like the energy is like sucked out like it's a vacuum, and I just want to go sit and listen to my music till I board the plane, and I barely move. But you know, the airlines probably don't like that drink policy, because that probably leads to a lot of missed flights.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I just saw a name pop up on our listeners on Wisdom, and it was Anthony Bonner. And he may not remember this, but he and I met in St. Louis. He's actually a St. Louis guy. And we met one night when I think he was watching his nephew, I think, at a basketball tournament up in like Hannibal or Quincy, and he was going back to St. Louis. And we met one night. I don't know if he remembers that or not, but great story. I remember it. Great basketball player, played in the NBA, and so Anthony Bonner's name showed up here on our listeners. So I appreciate that, Anthony. Good to see you, buddy. So, hey,
hopefully it's the same guy. But Anthony, hop on and I don't know, talk about beer or clients, whatever.
Yeah, funny news. So hey, I'll tell you. I said when we talk about the customer's not always right. Again, I was a state trooper, right? So I was a state trooper for 7 years. That is a job where the customer is never right.
And I agree with that customer thing, because every time you get pulled over, it's just cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah, but not for the trooper. And I'll tell you what, there's no quotas. And people used to ask me that all the time. I said, hey, don't you have a quota you got to hit? And I'm like going, no, they let me write as many as I want to. They don't limit me with a quota.
Do they have a minimum though?
No.
I'm just curious.
All right. So you know what happens? All right. So in this, no lie, first few months, I'm out past my FTO field training officer program. One of the old guys pulls me aside, right? And he says, hey, listen, rookie, I'm going to tell you something. He says, you need to slow down. I said, well, wait a second. I thought we were out here, I'm writing speeding tickets, I'm looking for drugs, I'm doing all this stuff. He says, what you don't realize is that your performance evaluation every year is based on you. So it's you versus you. So if you go out there and light up write 1,000 tickets this year and you only write 800 next year.
Oh, no.
They're going to think you're slumping off on the job, and you're going to get worse performance evaluation because you're not working as hard. So you got to pace yourself, because it's, again, trooper's just riding by himself.
Yeah.
You versus you. Right. So your performance is based on, what your productivity the year before.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
So, yeah. So sometimes I would just sit and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to wait for the big fish.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because
I don't want. I had a story, but I'm like, no, that's not one for the air. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Well, here was the thing, right? Because a good productivity level, what they told me was about 10 stops, 10 interactions per day, and that doesn't seem like a lot. And it can't. But think about every interaction you have with a police officer. It might be 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then you got to drive, you got to look for the next one, you got to do this type of thing. So 10 a day is good productivity. Now, this is where sometimes when you find your little honey hole, like maybe a little hill, and you're sitting on the backside of the hill and people just pop over it and they're doing 100 mile an hour, you might get 10 in an hour and a half and be done for the day.
Yeah. Okay. This clarifies a lot. Yeah.
That is funny. So, so tell me about a time when you learn from a customer, right? Because there are times when it's right. There are times when you're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. That was a good one.
Oh man, well that feels like it happens. Like, I don't want to say every day, but it's sort of like we learn from a customer every day. I bet you it feels like every week we get some insight where it's like, that's legit. That really helps us understand the problem better. That's what it usually is. It's very rare that there's like an idea or a request that it's like, oh, that's a no brainer. But I will actually, one that still I think is quite hilarious was not long, like right after we had launched Dry Run. And just for you guys that don't know, Dry Run's a cash management financial modeling software. So it's really about forward looking cash flow and all that sort of thing. And
not only that, Dry Run is our first sponsor.
And Dry Run is our, yeah, oh yeah, Dry Run's our, we should mention that Dry Run is our first sponsor.
Well, we're not used to having sponsors.
Yeah, we'll get used to that. I totally forgot, Frank. Like, geez, should remember that. So we, it was funny because one of our first users just said, "Do we have to have the decimal point?" And it just like. It just was like, yeah, that's stupid. You're forecasting hundreds of thousands of dollars, all the way up to millions of dollars into the future. So it's not going to be exact. And we had down to the cents. And it was just one of those like, yeah, that's really dumb. And so just took away the 2 cents, like the decimal points. And now you just have and it's easier to follow. It was one of those ones where it just was a bit of a head slapper. And I think we've had others over the years that haven't been that sort of silly and obvious, but it just felt like a funny one to me where I'm just like, yeah, why are we doing that?
All right. So let me clean this up. All right. So for those of you who don't know, I know on Wisdom, this is kind of a new format for us on Wisdom. Blaine Birch is the author of a book called Pandemic Cash Flow. And he's also the CEO of Dry Run, which is a cash flow forecasting software used by mid-sized companies or larger. And it's a fantastic product, it really is. It's for forecasting. I mean, and read his book. It's great stuff. And I've got to tell you, I'm known in the world as Cash Flow Mike. I built some cash. Actually, at one point in time, Blaine and I were competitors.
Yeah, I guess.
I built a product called Cash Flow Tool, and I don't know. I just like this guy, so we're doing this together. But more importantly, Blaine goes, you know what? I'm going to sponsor the show. So we're doing some advertisement. We're doing some things out there to increase our audience, and our first sponsor is Dry Run. So I want to say thank you, Blaine, for putting your effort into yourself, putting your money in yourself, right? Investing in you.
Well, you're most welcome, and I guess I'm most welcome. And I should have thought of that before I never even thought of it. I was like, oh, whatever. We'll get used to that whole thing where at least we mentioned Dry Run since we're sponsoring. But but come check us out if you're and Pandemic Cash Flow is more like, hey, you're getting started in business, you want to understand cash flow, take a look at that. Dry Run itself is actually more, you're doing $1 million plus revenue, battling those timing issues that you have with cash flow, like multi-million-dollar business, or modeling, where you're trying to go as a business. You're a SaaS business, you're trying to grow fast. We're really good at that. And you know what, this is what's so awesome about, Cash Flow Tool and Dry Run in a way is that Mike and I, this is how we got connected. We got connected through cash flow, through, I don't remember where it happened, but somehow that's how we got connected. Was it at a conference or something? I don't recall.
No, the universe talks to us, man.
Exactly.
It was actually Jeremy. Jeremy reached out to me when I was doing the coaching and training for the Clear Path to Cash.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Jeremy works for is our director of development at Dry Run. So if you're interested in Dry Run, you probably will talk with Jeremy, especially if you're interested in our partner program. That's exactly how we got connected, and that's a big thank you. And what we should take next time we're together in person, we're gonna take a little bit of cash from that sponsorship and just buy more beer.
I like the more beer thing. You had me at more beer.
That's more beer. Can never have too little beer.
Hey, super interesting that you brought up though, dropping off like the decimal point, because when I'm now coaching, and I've been doing a lot of coaching for businesses in Tennessee lately at the minority business development centers in Tennessee. I've been doing that, and I've got to where And we actually have a guest waiting. So we're going to let them in just a minute. Mario, we're going to let you in, buddy. But yeah, so at this Minority Business Center, what it is I've dropped off all the thousands. I'm just dealing with the last, the first top numbers. We're not even talking about dollars and cents or hundreds anymore. It starts at thousands. So, hey, Mario, man, I tell you what, we were worried we were going to get through this whole hour and nobody say anything. So Mario, welcome. What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. How are you guys?
Good.
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us, Mario.
Hey, so we talk about beer business and BS, and today we're talking about the customer's not always right, or anything you want to talk about. What's on your mind?
I'm just digging the conversation here. Don't really have anything on my mind. I just thought I saw this button and I was like, I wonder what will happen if I press that.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, that's exactly what happened to us the last few times. We're like, well, we don't know how to run Wisdom. So I'm like, well, what if I push this? What happens?
I didn't realize it was like, I didn't think it was gonna work, first of all. And I love like just having like an audience or like a group or like people discussing ideas where it's not so formal and distant like a podcast might be. So I don't know, it just seems really cool. I'm definitely I myself have a business. I've been wanting to do like I do like the YouTube, but I've been wanting to do something more like this. And I was just listening to you guys and getting inspirations, and it's just like it's cool to see how comfortable, how it's just like a normal conversation. It's not like a spotlight kind of feeling.
Yeah, no, I can see that, right? I mean, and I think that's one of the things I like about Wisdom is it does create just that's why we drink beer during it. We just have a conversation, and when I became friends with Blaine, this was the way we could just force ourselves to talk to each other every week.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, honestly, Mario, half the time we're talking, I forget we're recording, and then everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we're recording this. Better watch what we say." So, Mario, what kind of business do you have?
I was hearing, I think Mike said, I'm not sure which was which, but I think Mike said he coaches businesses. So I coach people, and I get people like, basically a lot of it lately has been just to get in touch with themselves. Like, what do they want? A lot of people spend a lot of time, people pleasing, and then they kind of lose touch with themselves.
Okay.
So that has been a lot of what has been coming up lately, but just anything to like get the person's mindset back to where it's helping them, with serving and having like a positive, you can call it a high vibes, positive energy, or a place that you can sort of go out and show up and do good from. You know what I mean? Like good results.
Hey, that's super interesting, right? So do this, right? Give us a little plug, which means who should call Mario, right? Who should call Mario and say, hey, if you're having this type of issue, call me because I can help.
Yeah, if you're having a hard time setting boundaries and going for your dreams, getting clarity on your dreams, and like just really going for it, call me because I can help.
All right. Hey, there you go, right? So how do they call you? You got a website or something? How do they figure out who you are?
Yeah, I started switching everything over to my Instagram page. So it's Mario G Lamb, Lam. So it's just Mario, the letter G, and then Lamb, it's Lam, is my Chinese last name. If you looked at me, you wouldn't think I'm Chinese, but I have a Chinese grandpa and I'm honoring that. So
all right, so Mario Gonzalez is Chinese.
Right, exactly. How do you know this? Oh, right, it's on here. Mario Gonzalez Lamb. So yeah, exactly. My mom who's Venezuelan, her dad is Chinese. Like he made her over from China. And so I'm Venezuelan Spaniard, and I have a little bit of Chinese in there.
All right. Well, hey, well, welcome. Really appreciate it. And I'll tell you what, if you're needing coaching, call Mario. Go check out his Instagram page. And I'll tell you, the other thing is, Mario, we're going to send you an invoice. It's going to be the same amount that Dry Run put in as a sponsorship.
All the services I'm getting.
Yeah, that's right.
So Mario, as part of the show today, with someone you've coached, have you been talking with someone and they're just, and you cannot get them on track? They're wrong. They're off track and you cannot pull them back. What have you ever had that sort of battle? Like, is that a challenge for you?
Yeah.
So what do you do? He muted. Okay.
There's some, I see that, the customer's not always right. I think you're trying to get towards that, but I get to choose my customers, right? And in my business, my approach, I would say, I kind of like, I call people out on their stuff, on their shit. And if they're not wanting to see their shit, it's not like I'm infallible, but there's certain times where you can see. And if this is some skill that you've developed, you can tell when somebody just has a blind spot where they just really don't want to see it. And it could be, it's really, for me, I can tell by the energy and I can hear it in their voice. But at that point, I might say, and I'm actually contemplating doing this with a client right now, I might say, like, you know what? I don't think that I'm a good match for you anymore. Like, I think whatever I could do for you, we did. And it's time for us to just, I can maybe refer you to somebody else. But for what your goals are and my expertise, they're not really aligned anymore.
Yeah. Hey, you know what, Mario? And they cut you off at like 3 minutes here. You only got about 3 minutes, just letting you know. But I agree. There are some people that are uncoachable, right? And and I actually have a risk. It's called an impact risk, chart. It's a formula, and the formula is skill plus will plus resources, right? Can you do it? Will you do it? And do you have the tools to do it, right? And it's a weighted mathematical formula. So when I talk to somebody, I kind of put them in a 1 to 10 scale on that. And I can share with anybody. I mean, if somebody contacts us on the website, I'll share with you the formula. If you're a coach out there and want to be able to know up ahead of time, put them through this assessment and you'll be able to determine whether or not you should spend time on them.
Right. Yeah, that could be helpful.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark. Mario, I wasn't sure if I thought you got cut off there for a second because I know our time. Anyway, go ahead quick before we run out of time.
I do like a clarity call, where I'm like, I don't really call it that, but that's what they call it in the industry. But I do a call, like an initial session where I'm just determining whether we're a good match. And the willingness to change is the number one thing. In my thing, it's mostly personal, so it doesn't require a lot of resources. Like most of the resources, if they don't have them, I can give them. But the willingness to change and to be honest with yourself, to be able to see, like, okay, like I'm doing this people pleasing, and I'm still haven't gotten to the point where it's costing me enough to where I actually want to deal with the discomfort of letting people down. And you're not really letting people down, but people are convinced that they're going to let others down when they stop people pleasing. And, I can tell somebody a million times, hey, you know what? Don't let your ex who can't find a place to live back into your house. And then I find out, like, oh my God, I'm really struggling. He's been spending a lot of time here. I'm just like, okay, well, what did we talk about here? It was pretty clear,
Yeah. Okay. So
anybody listening would know, like, oh yeah, that's a red flag. It's a bad idea.
All right. So accountability is a big thing, right? I mean, being able to hold somebody accountable and usually I give people homework, right? And then there's check-ins on the homework. I mean, that's kind of what I do when I'm coaching. It's like going, hey, you said you were going to do this. What happens if you don't? Right. That's one of my questions. Right. What happens if you don't do that?
Yeah. The accountability is huge for sure.
Yeah. Like a real big part of our sales process, of course, is the qualification process. And I'll be honest with you, we go way further than a lot of companies. Like we go through the discovery meeting, then we go through we go through a whole bunch of stages to make sure we're a good fit for you, that you're going to make money off of us, that you're like, we do a kind of an exhaustive qualification to make sure they're a good fit. And we still get a great number coming through and becoming dry run partners. But we do that because we want to make sure that we're a good match. And that is going to cut down on the number of mismatches we have and the number of, like you said, the clients not always right. Well, that's how we get down to sort of our group that is a really good fit. And then when they tell us stuff, we really are listening because we know, like, wow, you got through all the hoops. You're kind of who we serve, right?
Yeah. Hey, and Mario, by the way, hey, thanks for joining in. You hit that 10-minute limit that Wisdom put on. So anyway, hey, thank you very much. And we hope that people go to Mario's Instagram page and check him out. So, hey, Blaine, man, I tell you what, we are running. What'd you learn today?
You caught me unawares. It's one of those things like the customer like isn't always right, but I think a lot of it is make sure it's the right customer first. Make sure then you're going to be a lot more willing to listen to them. I think a lot of times when the customer is wrong, it's because they're not quite the right fit for you. It's a mismatch to start from.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I took away was something that you said earlier about asking the right questions, because sometimes, I mean, the mismatch is because I'm expecting one thing and your core issue is something different.
Yeah.
Right. So being able to suss out or root out that type of root cause that's actually causing the conflict is what we're terrible at. I think it just as humans, we're terrible. I'm terrible at it with my daughters. I'm terrible. I practice it. I'm getting better, but man, I tell you what, finding the root cause really helps if you can address it and be authentic about it. So, hey, guess what we did? We did episode 35. We talked about the customer is not always right, and you're listening to Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine. And if you want to, go to mikeandblaine.com. Check out our stuff. We got merch now. We got books. We got, you know what? We drink beer during this. We always highlight a beer. And I had Weathered Souls West Coast Style IPA. And tell them who we were sponsored by, Blaine.
Yes, sponsor. Okay. And I just beforehand, Pizza Port, Swami's Indian Pale Ale, terrific beer, sponsored by, and this is just off the hip because we haven't even thought about it, sponsored by Dry Run. If you want to know, you need some help with your financial modeling, cash management, basically understanding where you're headed with your business, where you're headed with your finances. Companies that are over $1 million a year, like multi-million-dollar companies, really benefit the most from us, but anyone come and check us out. Please check us out, dryrun.com. Appreciate it.
Hey, another good one. Mario, thank you very much. And Blaine, we'll see you next week.
Sounds good, man. Until next week.